Hey Faith family, it's Brother Mario. I pray you're having a great day. I wanted to go ahead and create this video here to discuss with you a very important topic and question, and that is, should Christians practice yoga? This is a question that's actually growing amongst Christians today. Many ask themselves this question, so I wanted to create this video. Now, I believe I am one of the most qualified people to speak on this topic to Christians, and the reason is, I was a Hatha yoga instructor. That right there, it's upside down for you. But anyways, it's the word yoga with a lotus flower to symbolize the spiritual enlightenment that is the aim and the end result of the yogic practice. You practice yoga to achieve what's called Brahma consciousness, where your consciousness reaches the highest level possible according to the Hindu practice, where now you believe yourself to be at one with everything. You are an enlightened being because you now know that you are a God, because everything's God. So you end up falling for a pantheistic lie about the nature of our reality. So this is the reason that I believe I can come to you here, now a born-again Christian who's repented of all these false forms of spirituality. And now I'm following the Lord Jesus Christ in His truth and in His way. So I'm very excited to be providing this video, so I hope that your ears are open. This video also is not only for Christians, it's for non-believers as well. If you stumbled across this video and you're probably thinking, what does this weirdo have to say on the topic of yoga? Oh, these Christians think everything is evil. But you're still here watching for some reason. Stick with me. What I'm going to show you in this video is something that yogis and most yoga practitioners never actually talk about. And that is the spiritual dangers of practicing yoga. And they themselves admit this, that you can practice yoga and have what's called a Kundalini Danger. It happened to me, where you get violently sick. You're throwing up every day. You got all these tingling sensations. You might have bodily contortions happen for no apparent reason. You might hear voices. You might have tingles in your body. All these things might be happening to you, but most of the time, your yoga teacher never talks about that. Stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm going to show you that there are dangers to practicing yoga, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So please stay tuned for that. So now, why is this even happening today? How is it that I have to create a video to Christians who, in my opinion, should be so spiritually discerning and sound in their understanding of the Bible that they should know the answer to this question? Well, the reality is, the Bible tells us about a prophecy. Let's look at it here. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3 says, "For the time is coming when people will not endure sound doctrine, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions." Now, the reason that this has become a problem here, and we are even asking ourselves this question as Christians when generations ago it wouldn't even be up for discussion, is because we in the Western civilization have been taken over, desensitized by Eastern mystic occult practices. In the 1970s, we had the Beatles, the hippie movement, and all this new spirituality find its way into the West. And now today, the problem is we are having a hard time to distinguish between the real spiritual path that Jesus lays out for us in the scriptures and occult practices that are creeping in. Now, before we go any further, I'm just going to clarify. I don't believe that if you're just simply doing a stretch, a yoga pose, that it's somehow evil. I don't think that if you take your leg and you stretch it up and you hold yourself in a posture like this, that this is evil. Okay? I want to be clear here so that we have a good and sound understanding. But let me tell you, if you believe that stretching, breathing, and holding postures is what yoga truly is, you don't even know what yoga actually means. Let's check this out. Yoga is a spiritual practice of worship to the gods of Hinduism. Through different various meditations, stretches, and breath exercises, the practitioner can gain what is called Brahma consciousness, or enlightened consciousness, which is an integration or union with the highest God or expression of God in Hinduism. So when I had to study to be a yoga instructor, I had to read the Hindu scriptures. I had to study scriptures of Hinduism, my brother or sister. And so I was making myself a teacher of Hinduism, and people that would come to the class wouldn't have much an idea that my goal was to lead them to this higher state of consciousness. But that is really what my aim was when I was a yoga instructor. And so I would lead people to a satanic philosophical doctrine, or lie, you could say, that teaches that I am God, you are God, through facilitating a mystical experience through these meditations and practices for them. Now let's point something out as well. Let's look at, for example, the sun salutation. The sun salutation is basically the warm-up in most yoga practices. Now just pause for a moment. Look at the name, sun salutation or sun worship. It is literally a sequence of postures to display worship and adoration to the sun god. My dear brother or sister in the Lord, if you know anything about the scriptures, you know that God is not one who is very fond of sun worship. And in fact, this is one of the things that the pagans were doing that God was calling them out for. He says to them, you have been led astray. You've fallen for the lie, that you are now in a state where you are worshiping the creation and not the creator. Another thing that we can look at when it comes to yoga is the yoga practice that really messed me up the most, which was Kundalini yoga, often called serpent yoga. Now, this yoga teaches that there is an energy serpent dormant at the base chakra, and that through various exercises and practices, one can awaken their consciousness so that the serpent begins to climb up the different chakra system, eventually making its way to the pineal gland, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra, where the production of the awareness that you are at one with everything will take place. Brothers and sisters, think about that. A serpent that lies at the base of your spine that then can be awoken up you. And once it gets here, you're going to believe the lie that Eve fell for in the garden. Through this gnosis, this supposed knowledge, this false knowledge, you are now going to believe that you are at one with everything and that everything is God. Not good. I mean, spiritually, you should be able to discern this. As I said before, I actually got sick from practicing this serpent style of yoga. One of the symptoms that I experienced was hot pain in my back in the morning. I would wake up and have chills, and I would vomit, and I would hear these very powerful, intuitive voices because I was opening myself up to the spirit realm by unknowingly dabbling in these occult satanic practices. And so I got sick for a long time. They call it the dark night of the soul. I don't know if you've seen Pervy. She's another YouTuber who's a Christian who has a testimony out on yoga. She lost her hair. All sorts of things were happening to her body. And you might be thinking, oh, this is just from some Christian. No. Go check out their own documents. Do your own research right now. Go look up Kundalini Dangers. You'll find people on YouTube even talking about, man, I'm having all these symptoms and things occurring because I'm trying to awaken my consciousness. And these poor people, like me back in the day, think that it's a good experience. They continue in practicing the very thing that's making them sick. And so please, if you are experiencing this, it's because you are dabbling in witchcraft. The spiritual things that are occurring, the emotional, mental, and physical, are a result of you doing practices that God says not to be caught in. So now that leads us to Christian yoga. This is something that is really alarming. Some well-meaning, I guess, brothers and sisters, have taken the yogic practice, an occult, Middle Eastern, satanic, Hindu practice that is designed for the purpose of leading someone to enlightenment, the false pantheistic belief, the same lie that Eve was told in the garden. This has now been brought into the church. Somehow they believe that they can Christianize this satanic, abominable practice by just removing the Sanskrit, Hindu type of yoga terminology and replacing it with Christian terminologies. Yet, most times, still talking about chakras, still using the sun salutation and all that stuff. Now, brothers and sisters, I know you mean well, but you need to step your discernment game up. You really see nothing wrong by replicating exactly, just changing the names, a practice as I described here. I don't know where, maybe you grew up in the church your whole life. I came from this. I practice this stuff. I know how spiritually dark, confusing, and wrong this practice is. And now I turn around after being freed of this. I'm freed from this and brought into the church. And I look around and you are bringing it into the church. It doesn't belong here. Get it out. Now, as I said, if you want to, hey, take your leg, stretch. If you want to do breathing exercises, if you want to hold postures because they're good for your bodies, do Pilates. Just stop this nonsense with the yoga, okay? The term yoga is a confusing one, and the real danger is this. The real danger is that I don't believe some of you Christians are going to go into a yoga class if you were led there and you didn't know and you're practicing it, and all of a sudden you're going to end up demon-possessed in that moment. I don't believe that. But what I do believe is, according to the prophecy, we're going to see people not enduring sound doctrines. You know how many Christians today are getting confused because New Age and Christianity in this generation is being merged into something that's not true, by the way, but it's being done like this in our generation? You're going to confuse them. They're not sound in their doctrine, and they're going to be led astray by what the yogic practice is. And before you know it, they were coming to God, but they started practicing Christian yoga. And then that Christian yoga got them to check out into astrology and get them into numerology and get them, well, you know what? Maybe we are all gods. And then before you know it, they slip away. That's the danger. That's the real danger here, is that Christians who are not sound enough in their understanding would practice these things and be led astray. And now the other danger is if you're not born again and filled with the Holy Spirit, you can end up demon-possessed by Kundalini spirits. Plain and simple. So this is not something that we as a church should be compromising on. So what? You're getting a little bit of relaxation. Go for a run, do a stretch, do a breathing thing. Just stop using yoga because that's facilitating confusion in the church. And this is something we can't allow in it. So there you have it, everyone. I just pray that this video was a blessing to you, that it helps you along your way to really understand this concept that as a Christian, we shouldn't be practicing a Middle Eastern, metaphysical, occult form of spirituality that facilitates through breath, meditation, and posture the enlightened state of deception from New Age Eastern philosophies. We shouldn't be doing that. All right, so please, brothers and sisters, use discernment. The church needs discernment right now, and discernment is when we know what is of God and what isn't. And so real yoga with the aim of achieving Brahma consciousness has no place in the Christian's life. And brothers and sisters who are trying to Christianize this practice and bring it into your congregations and churches, wake up. This ain't a joke. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, and the enemy is subtle. You may not think that there's much that can be done through what you're doing, but let me tell you, that subtle enemy is really taking advantage of what you're doing in your quest to Christianize this demonic thing. So I pray this was a blessing to you. Have a blessed and wonderful day. Stay vigilant and fear no evil.